Okay, we are here with Dave Teason here from Hamilton. He is going to share some great stories with us today. Dave is a systems business systems coordinator for us, so he'll probably talk a little bit about what he does. But he handles a lot of the coordination of our what we call business key systems, such as our phone systems, which we're going to talk about here today. So Dave is a vital piece to that puzzle and to our team and coordinating all of that. So he tell me, Dave, how long have you been with the company now? You've been with Hamilton a long time.
I have been with Hamilton a long
Can you
time.
remember how long you've been with Hamilton?
I do. It does correlate with some children, so that helps. I am just short of 18 years. So
18 years. That's
yes,
that's awesome. That's so great.
yes,
We have a lot of our techs have a lot of tenure with the company, which is great. And I think that helps as we bring experience to the customers that we serve. And the story you want to share with us today is a perfect example of that you've been involved with for many years now. So I want to hear about this story that you're going to tell me. Tell me about how we helped a customer recently. Well, I shouldn't say recently, in the last decade, kind of pull through a difficult situation they had with their phone systems. And this is one of the things that you work closely with in your day-to-day job. So tell me about what happened with that.
yeah, absolutely. So previously, I did a little more tech work than I do on a day-to-day basis now. But I was working with a customer, and they called, and they had indicated that they had a phone system that just wasn't working very well, and so I met with them, and then they said, we need a new phone system, and they had just purchased it, and they had spent a lot of money on it, and they said it just didn't work, and it was a system that I knew really well, and I said, well, that doesn't sound right to me because it's a really good system, and they said, no, it's not very good. And I said, no, I think it's a pretty good system. And they said, no, we need something different. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. And so we sat down and we talked through it a lot. And I said, so what's going on? And tell me what doesn't work and tell me why it doesn't work. And anyway, so as we really sat down and assessed what was going on, I said, I think you have different problems. I said, the product itself is really good. I said, I think you have a programming problem. And I said, if you would let me, work some, let me look at it and we work through some things, I think you're going to really like the product, and we'll get it working really well. And I said, I think you're going to like the product. And the customer looked at me and said, I am never going to like this product. And I think you're going to like this product. And so we kind of bantered back and forth. And I said, I'll make you a bet. I said, in 1 year's time, you're going to love this product. And she looked at me and said, nope, I'm never going to like this product. And I said, okay. Anyway, so we kind of worked through it, and it was going to be a little bit of a process because they had to change a little bit and we had to work through it. And so we worked through the initial part and got them up and running, and it was working really well. And through the next year, they had to make some changes. They made some office changes, some personnel changes, and we continued to work through all of that. And it was working really smooth, and we kind of worked through all of that. And after about a year's time, I was back at the office, and I was sitting there with the office manager, and I said, I'd really like to talk to the doctor there. And I said, I'd really like to talk to her. And they're like, well, she's really busy today. And I said, I'd really like to talk to her. And they said, and finally she heard that and she walked out and she goes, hey, what do you need? And I said, you remember that about a year ago, we talked about some stuff? And she smiled at me really big. She goes, no, I don't remember a thing. I said, remember that conversation? She goes, nope, don't remember a thing. And she smiled at me real big and she turned around and walked off. Anyway, it was a great conversation, and we had a great time. It was a good system, and she's still a customer to this day. And so it was a really good experience for us, and they've been a really good customer for us, and it's been a really good relationship
Cool.
for both of us. So.
Yeah, and I can imagine walking into that situation where they're already frustrated with what they're working with, right? That's kind of contentious. Emotions are high. Everybody's frustrated because all you want is your phone system to work. You want to be able to make the calls, make the transfers, do all the things you want to do. So I can imagine going in there,
Yeah.
busy office. They've got a lot going
Yep.
on.
Yeah.
How do you, as a team, how do we at Hamilton approach that and make sure? I mean, you're obviously very conversational with them and try to make things easy. Sounds to me like you tried to work to uncover things. What was that process like? Like, how did that go? How did the customer maybe feel about that? Tell me a little bit about that experience with them.
One of the things that we really try to do is we really try to talk about things. Tell us the experience. Don't try. We want to. we don't want them to troubleshoot it. We want you to tell us what's the experience is, because a lot of times people try to troubleshoot their own problems, and the reality is the technology is so different and changing so often that what used to be a solution, say 5 years ago, isn't the same solution that we use today. So, and in this case, they were trying to do something, and probably they were using technology that was really they were trying to solve the problem of today with technology that they in the same manner that they would have 20 years ago. And so when we really applied the new technology to the solution of today, even though this was 10 years ago, like it really became pretty straightforward. And in some cases, it was not the correct licensing. And I said we had to rearrange some things and we had to make some changes. But that's really how we kind of try to approach this and say, you tell me what doesn't work. You let me, as an expert, try to figure out the way to fix it. When I go to a doctor, I don't say, "Hey, this is what's wrong with me. Fix it." I go to the doctor to say, "What's wrong with me?" And so that's really the same kind of mentality that we try to work with our customers. You tell me what's wrong, and we're going to try to diagnose what's wrong, and then we use that to try to fix what the solution is, or to develop what the actual solution is.
It's almost like, tell me the symptoms and I'll help you kind of solve what, and find the right solution. And it's always interesting to me too, because I think about this when I've heard you guys talk about all of the customers that we've worked with. When they come to us with a problem, like I was mentioning, emotions are so high, you're usually in a frustrated state, right? Like something isn't working. I need help. And what I love about the techs and what you guys do is, for me, not being in the tech world all the time, sometimes those terms can get really daunting and overwhelming, and people don't know what you're saying or understand what they're, what are you talking about? You guys do a really nice job of bringing that down to a level that's just clear and everybody understands it. Like you said, tell me the symptoms of what's going on, and then we'll help solve it. You don't have to worry about that. Meanwhile, the business, the office, whatever it is, the location is able to just do what they do best, right? Continue their job and do what they do, which I think is a huge benefit to these systems, these phone systems that we recommend and use. So
you said a really key word there, that a lot of people use different words differently. And so that's one of the reasons we ask a lot of questions and say, let us try to figure out what the solution is and what the problems are, because people tell us one thing, but if you don't use the words correctly, or don't quite know what the word means, then we can help decipher what it is. Because some people will use a word a certain way, and somebody will use a word a little bit differently. And so then how do you, like, each word means something different to somebody else. And so that's where some of the troubleshooting becomes very difficult. And so we really try to say, what does the noise sound like? Don't say it's this. Tell us what it sounds like. So we'll try to determine what the noise sounds like on the phone. So as an example. So
yeah, and I think that's so helpful too, because we're not experts in it. As a customer, I wouldn't be an expert in it, but you are, and so that's what the value that you guys are bringing to the table. So if you could give any piece of advice to maybe a business owner, office manager, somebody that's kind of thinking about, okay, wait, I'm having some phone issues, or I'm having an issue with, some of my technology. What is like one piece of advice you could give somebody based on this experience that they could take away from this?
One of the things that I talk to people about is, find people that know the business and trust that they can do it. The business, the services change so fast, and that if you don't have somebody that you can trust to help you through the process, it becomes very overwhelming and very daunting. And that's a really key component of what we do. If you're a business person and you sell whatever you sell, you become an expert in it. Well, you don't need to become an expert in a phone system. Let us do that part. And at the end of the day, we're going to help take care of you. And you can be an expert in running your business. Don't try to become an expert in running your phones per se. We can take that load off of you. And at the end of the day, a lot of times it's actually cheaper for hiring us and taking that load off of you. And now you can become the expert in your business, which is what you want to do anyway.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And one thing I was thinking about too, when you mentioned that, this isn't one of those like one and done type services or situations or things that we help. You guys are consistently communicating with this customer and talking about it and making sure that everybody is satisfied and it's working, because things change so frequently, right? Either office needs change, staffing changes, whatever it is, technology changes. So I think that that's one important aspect too, from your team. This isn't just a one and done. It's, over a decade's time. I can imagine how many times you've met and talked to that customer in person, or been available for that phone call when they needed help or something. Just a phone call away type of deal. So.
Right. And as your business changes, then you have somebody there that can help walk you through that. So if you're growing, now we can help go through that process and say, hey, what's a cost-effective way that, hey, I need this and this yet. Hey, yep, we can get you through that. And you're not spending a lot of money to do that. Hey, in 5 years, this is where we plan on being. So now we can start planning for the future. Hey, if this is where you want to go, let's start doing this already now and make it a cost-effective way to get there. Instead of, hey, okay, now I have to throw everything away and we start over from scratch, which is really not what any business owner wants to do. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. This is such a great story. I appreciate it. Hopefully everybody has some takeaways and different things that they can, as they start to think about things. One of the things I always throw out there, if you have questions, if you've got, if this is sparking a thought for you, give us a call. You could talk to our real people, our real techs. They're there to help. Phone number 308-381-1000 is the one that we recommend that you guys give us a shout at, or our website, hamiltonisbusiness.com. So I think a lot of folks know that, but hamiltonisbusiness.com if you want to connect with us and have our techs help solve some problems for you. So thanks, Dave, for your time. Really appreciate you today.
Absolutely.